and welcome to another episode of Tax Able. Today we're joined with Anjan Luthra, who is the CEO and founder of Thrillz. And Thrillz is an online platform which connects celebrities with their fans through personalised videos. So welcome, Anj.
Hi Tash, thanks for having me.
No problem. So I've given a brief overview of Thrillz, but can you tell me a little bit more about the company?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So we're a firm based in London. We are a technology platform allowing celebrities to connect with their fans and businesses across the globe. We have a team of 10 people now in London and Europe, and we have over 1,000 celebrities who are really enjoying, connecting and communicating with their fans. We've founded in 2020. We've been going for just over a year now.
Yep.
And we've been growing really fast. And yeah, obviously we're here in our in-house content studio in London, which we use to have podcasts, but also we bring a lot of our celebrities in here and have some fun with them.
Oh, that's great. And so how did you come up with the idea of Thrillz and when?
So our story is pretty interesting. It's not the kind of typical startup story. In terms of my background, similar to you, I used to work in finance.
Yep.
I'm also a chartered accountant, and I worked in private equity for a couple of years. I left all that to start working on a technology platform in the event space.
Yep.
And
I think I remember this one where you could book a musician or kind of sort of like Pop Top.
Yeah, exactly. Very similar to that business, and it was using a bit more technology to facilitate that process to find entertainers. And I spent 8-9 months building that platform in 2019. I launched it at the end of that year, and it started doing really well. And at that point, I left my job in London and started focusing on that business. And 2-3 months later, COVID came and live events went to zero. The market was kind of evaporated overnight. And all of a sudden, we were in a pretty sticky situation because we just raised some funding and we were focusing on that business. And then suddenly the market went. So it was at that stage we paused and we took a couple of months to think about what can we do next, where what industry is hot right now, where can we pivot the business to. And I was really lucky to play a lot of sport when I was young. So I played tennis and cricket for Scotland, and I had a few connections within the sporting arena. And it was pretty clear that famous individuals in the UK were also struggling during COVID because a lot of their corporate speaking engagements had been taken away from them. So by speaking to them and also having a lot of kind of thinking time myself, I realized actually let's move into the celebrity space and let's move into technology to help them have a direct source of income and not rely solely on the corporate speaking element of their revenue stream. So that was the idea. It was a very kind of traumatic journey. You started
stressful when you just launched a business and then you have a national pandemic and you're like, what do I do now?
And it was what made it even worse was we literally closed our funding rounds 2 days before Boris locked the whole country down. So we were, some say we were really lucky, some say we were very unlucky. I'm always optimistic about everything. So I think we were actually very lucky and very fortunate that we were able to close the round just before the lockdown, and that allowed us to have some capital to get to work on Thrillz and the new idea. So really stressful time, but I mean the life of running a business is everyone.
You have to keep adapting, don't you? Everyone wants to plan and wants it to go to plan, but you'll always deviate slightly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I know a lot of other businesses, that have pivoted like over COVID and testament to everyone that has, because it's a pretty difficult thing to do. But there's been some amazing businesses that have, come out of the pandemic and I think you need to show a lot of resilience and drive to kind of, navigate something like that. But crises also bring opportunity. And I think it was good for us to, change the model quickly and get back to work. And it was an intense period of building another platform. And then we launched at the end of 2020 was when we really started to kind of get some traction and launch it to the public.
Just before another lockdown.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I launched like end of November, December, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was at that point. It was actually the second lockdown wasn't as bad for us as the first one, because in the first one, the lockdown was affecting the original business idea, which was live events.
Yeah.
But in the second lockdown, we built Thrillz and we had celebrities on the platform that were connecting digitally with their fans. So the lockdown actually enhanced that business model at that point, because people were stuck at home, they couldn't see celebrities, and all of our technology was ready, and we were kind of in the market. So we actually saw like a really nice growth in Q4 2020. And that actually led to us raising another funding round in early 2021.
Oh, amazing. And it's a really good idea, because celebrities need to connect with their fans to stay relevant. And this way they actually get some money out of it. Because if they're just doing stories and posts on Instagram, then they're probably not getting much back from it. So at least from this, they're actually getting to convert that and make it a bit more personal for their fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's really opened up their audience to them, and it's given them a new way to monetize their fame. Different celebrities across different bands monetize in different ways, and yeah, if you're Cristiano Ronaldo or Kylie Jenner, you're making $1 million per Instagram post, but there's a huge selection of celebrities that are not in that category.
Yeah.
And they need different ways of monetizing their fan base. So traditionally, the way that they have monetized their fan base is in-person meet and greets and fan engagement events. But the problem in that market is it's very expensive, because there's only one celebrity, but there's millions of fans. So there's only so much time that the celebrity can spend with fans, and that's why it's so expensive, because it's supply and demand. So the way that Thrillz solves that problem is the celebrity, without traveling, without doing hair and makeup, without rehearsing, without briefing for studio days and commuting, they can pick up their phone, record a video, send it to their fans, and they can scale the happiness effect. They can make loads of people really happy with minimal effort. So it's working pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure they're a fan of that as well. So did you always want to work for yourself or own your own company?
Good question. I would say yes, but I didn't believe in myself enough to pursue it for a long time. So I come from an Indian background. My parents are both from India. I've stayed there for a couple of years, and as you may know, education is really big in Indian culture. So there was pressures and expectations to focus on education, which is why I went down the finance route and became an accountant, and then moved into private equity. But I was always the rebel in my family, and I always deviated from what my parents exactly wanted me to do. So while I was studying and while I was playing cricket, I launched my first business. So I kind of did that on the side, and that was in the event space, and I was really lucky that did quite well. But then I got put in my lane again at the end of university. My dad was like, "Yeah, you're not playing cricket anymore, and you're not doing your business. You need to become an accountant." And
pressure.
Yeah, exactly. So I parked it again, and then focused on being a professional, which was great, and I loved every moment of it and learned loads. But then 5-6 years later, after I moved to London and learned a lot working in private equity, I had the courage and the belief again to do something on my own, and it was the entrepreneurial bug inside me that made me leave Partners Group and made me pursue something on my own. So I believe like I am an entrepreneur at heart, but the journey so far has been up and down.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be, isn't it? Anyone that you talk to that's had a super successful business, they've probably lost everything 3 or 4 times before they got that final idea that then takes off. Sometimes it takes off straight away, and sometimes it takes years and years and years. But it's good you've got an accounting background. I'm a fan.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we have a lot in common, and before the podcast, we're obviously talking about all the different taxes, and it's interesting. I think being an accountant and the training that I went through was really useful, and I always say that being a chartered accountant is similar to being like a GP in kind of medical field, where you don't really know everything about one particular topic. So you're not a specialist in like a specific field, but you know enough about the kind of wide arena of business. So I really valued that qualification that I obtained there, because it trained us on how to understand a bit about tax, legal, employment,
where to look for information. That's the main thing that I find most business owners aren't sure. Like, do you look on a company website? Do I look at HMRC? Do I look on like an external, you need a source, like what we use Tolly's, but which is more geared towards professionals, but it has so much information, and it's like, where do you find it where someone spells it out for you? Well, if you do this, this is going to happen.
Yeah, I think the key to, like one of the big lessons I've learned is when you don't know something, the way to navigate through it is by having the curiosity and having the ability to ask questions and figure out where you need to go and who you need to ask, who you need to speak to. And that usually helps you navigate things. And that was what our training helped us do. It really helped us take complex problems and coach us and train us on how to navigate through these problems.
Yeah.
So and now every day, the team members will testify to this, is like we have problems every single day that none of us know anything about, and we don't know, including me. But we always figure out a way. Yeah, we figure out a way to solve it, and that's the challenge of kind of being out on your own and not being part of like a very, very big company.
Have you experienced any difficulties along the way? So I know that you had a bit of a flood just as soon as you opened. Well, I don't think you'd even open the office.
Yeah, I think the better way to phrase that question is how many difficulties have you had? Because there's definitely been a lot, including as I mentioned at the beginning around the pivot to the business, and that was the first like massive obstacle we had to overcome. The flood was a big obstacle.
That was such a bizarre bit of weather.
Yeah, it was crazy, and it was. I would expect that where I'm from in Glasgow, but not in London. So that was pretty crazy. We moved into this office after a 4-week renovation. When we moved into this place, it was a complete dungeon.
Yeah.
We spent 4 weeks renovating it. Blood, sweat, and tears. We had a big team doing it. And lots of late nights, lots of planning, big team effort. And we had we moved in, I think like three days before the flood. We were getting used to our environment, and we're kind of just onboarding everyone into the office. And then on the Monday, we had a big investor coming into the office, and it was like the grand kind of opening, and we were going to roll out the red carpet for him, and we were going to host him in the offices, and he was wanting to invest, and it was like a pitch to him. And Sunday night I came into the office, luckily, to prepare for that meeting on Monday. And as I sat down an hour later, the sink started bubbling up with water, and I was like, "What on earth is going on? Like, why is the sink like sending water upwards?"
Yeah.
And I'm really bad at DIY, so I didn't even clock. Like, I didn't even realize that this could be a potential problem. So I just ignored it. And then an hour later, I went to make a cup of tea.
You think it's just gonna like go away, and it's just gonna...
I just thought it was like, I knew that it was raining, and I knew there was something going on, but I just thought it would I just kind of ignored it. I probably shouldn't, but I ignored it. And then an hour later, I went through to the kitchen to make a cup of tea, and it was just water everywhere. The whole place was flooding. And I was like, oh gosh, this is really bad. So then I dragged my fiance Kate along with me that day to the office. And she was helping me kind of lift up furniture, and we had to mop and bucket out, and it was really bad. But that was a difficulty that we overcame. And the next day the investor came, and we had to go somewhere else. And that was pretty stressful. But we've had loads of other things. I mean, I've hired the wrong people. There's been mistakes there. In the very early days, built the first platform with a team in Vietnam who didn't speak English. So I had to build a full technology platform via Google Translate. Because they were the only ones that I could afford to use. So lots of obstacles, but you just need to find a way to kind of make it happen. But even now, like, we're still facing so many new situations that we've never come across, because it is such a new industry, it's a new business, and we're growing very quickly. But with that comes challenges every single day.
It's exciting, but some days you just want an easy day. I bet you miss accounting and finance a little bit when you can just go in, clock in and clock out. Obviously you don't get the same reward, but maybe like an easy Wednesday afternoon. Nice.
I sometimes I say to my friends, I say to Kate, my fiance, that sometimes I do miss you're working in private equity, which is also very demanding.
It's a different type of stress and demand.
Because you can clock off at 7, 8, you go home, and you don't need to think about it. Whereas the kind kind of most stressful part of running your own company is that it's always in your mind 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Is it flooding again?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, is it flooding? What's going on with the growth? How are the celebrities? How are the customers? How's the team? Are the deals going through? Are we raising money?
Just never switch off.
Just like constant. So, definitely not complaining. I chose to do it, so I need to kind of deal with it and navigate through it. But I would probably say that's the most difficult thing is not being able to switch off. And I think I'm really bad for it. So, one thing that I've had to kind of learn and improve on is like figure out ways to switch off, because I do think that it's not sustainable if you don't switch off
at all.
Yeah. So, there's been things that I've introduced into my life to kind of help me like deal with it, but
meditation.
Not
quite there yet.
Not quite there yet.
Give it another couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Maybe a year's time, I'll be a pro meditator, but I've gone back to my sport, so just like playing a bit more tennis and taking some time out there has been really good.
Take your mind off it, because you can't think about that when you're playing a game. So
exactly. The good thing about tennis is when you're on the court, like all you're focusing on is a tennis ball, so that's really good. But when you're hyper ambitious and you want to build a global company and you've got kind of big plans and you want to move quickly, you need to be prepared to work very, very hard, and you just need to accept that that's like part of the job. So as long as you're kind of having fun and the people that you're working with are kind of aligned with you and you enjoy working with them, then it makes it easier. But it's a really good experience for young people.
It's a steep learning curve.
Yeah,
especially like with the pandemic as well, when everyone's been used to working at home a bit more, like opening an office and then having everything else. It's a lot to take on.
Yeah, and the pandemic was interesting. Like launching a company is hard, no matter when you do it. And then obviously the pandemic was made everyone's life significantly harder. And launching a company during that phase was a really unique challenge. And it was like small things, because you don't really think about what the pandemic actually affects on a day-to-day basis. But for a small business like us, when we were launching at that time, the team didn't know each other. We were hiring people that we never met in person before. I was hiring people for the first time in my career, so it made it a bit more difficult to get that right, because not only had I never hired people before, but I'd also like never hired people virtually. So you removed that kind of gut feel that you get from a person when you meet them. So that was challenging. And then when you got over that obstacle of hiring the individuals, spending time with them was impossible. So you're hiring this remote team, and it was a new company. There was no culture in the company because it was so new. So building a culture requires a team to be in a room. And
I'm a control freak. I think I would have struggled with that a little bit.
Yeah, and that's the other thing as well, is at the very early days, it was a very new team, new individuals, new relationships. No one had ever met anyone, and obviously with that there's limited kind of trust, right? Because it's so new. Everyone is so new in the organization. But we were very lucky that we built up that trust between all of us very quickly, and now we're in like a really good place, and the core team is great, and we're in the office like 3 days a week, which is good. But it was a challenging time for any business, I think.
Apart from when there's a storm, can't get in.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been a lot of wild weather.
Yeah, well, we were supposed to do this on Monday, and all the trains got cancelled because of the storm. So
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So is Thrillz self-funded? You mentioned that you had some funding from the old idea, but then have you invested any of your own money? Like, what sort of investment have you been looking for and you are looking for?
Yeah, so our funding profile is the first year when I was building the initial platform, it was self-funded. So I funded it alongside our very first investor, but there was a small amount, and that kind of lasted a year while we were building the initial platform. And then when that started to grow and do quite well, we were able to raise like a friends and family round. So that was about £540,000, and then we used that to build Thrillz and take that to market, start growing it, and then at the end of 2020. we started raising the next round, which we closed at about £830,000. And that was friends and family plus some new investors and our first institutional investor. So that was a Canadian family office called the Granicus Group. They're behind a very, very big YouTube company that's got like 45 million followers.
Perfect, like matching.
Yeah,
as well.
Exactly. So there was nice synergies there, and we raised money from them. So yeah, in total, since end of 2019, we've raised about £1.5 million. And we're now in the midst of raising our next round, which will be multiples of that. And yeah, we're kind of looking to kind of close that over the next couple of weeks.
And you've looked into SEIS and EIS investments.
Yeah, exactly.
Been reading a lot about that, I imagine.
Yeah. And that's one of the really good things about launching a business in the UK is you get the SEIS and EIS benefits for investors. So if you're HMRC approved. And it's quite a difficult process actually to get the company approved.
There's a lot of pressure on the company as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you mess it up and they end up investing and they don't get the relief, then that's really bad. But we were hyper prepared, and it took a lot of time. And I think my background helped us kind of navigate through that process. But yeah, at the time when we were applying for it, we couldn't afford to pay advisors to help us. So it was kind of all us individually doing it and putting the pack together. And I remember it was like a 30-40 page pack that we had to submit to HMRC. We got the approval, and then you get your advance assurance, and then you can go out and raise money.
It's like the golden ticket.
Yeah, exactly.
Finally go out and raise the money.
Exactly, and that obviously helps the investors like significantly. I mean, it's effectively like 70% downside protection for any investor. When they invest in a startup. So really positive, tax break, and I hope the government doesn't remove it.
I don't think they are, which is good. So those of you who aren't aware of the investment reliefs, or maybe have heard of SEIS and EIS but aren't aware what they are. So SEIS is Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme, and EIS is Enterprise Investment Scheme. So SEIS and EIS, and I'm going to call them that, they are a bit more reluctant. So they're going to give you higher rates if you want to lend. So to grow, you need debt or equity. So if you're not going to get favourable rates, you then look to outside investments. And SEIS and EIS help eligible companies become more attractive. And that's because the investors personally receive certain tax reliefs for their investment. And they receive the tax reliefs in their self-assessment tax returns. So SEIS is the first stop. I mean, you know all of this. When we had a chat, you were very up to date. It was lovely. It was great. So it's your first stop, and it's only available for companies in their infancy, and that's the first 2 years of trading. So I think you're probably maxing out of SEIS at the moment.
I think there was a limit. I think it was like £150,000 or something that you could raise
in entirety rather than per annum. So it's more just to get it off the ground. If you don't have friends, family, or your own amount, it's a good way of getting you at least like to build a platform, or to at least employ someone to help you out. But as soon as you receive any sort of investment from a venture capital trust, but I'm going to call that a VCT, or EIS, then you can't use SEIS anymore. So you have to be really careful if you are starting up a business to make sure that you max out your SEIS first, and then you move on to the other reliefs. And then EIS is the big ticket that every investor probably wants, because you can raise money in the first 7 years of starting up a business, and you get a really good relief. And you can raise 5 million each year up to a maximum of 12 million, unless you're a knowledge-intensive company. Now, I won't go into too much detail. That'll be in a separate podcast, so don't worry if anyone wants to listen to it. But a knowledge-intensive company is anyone that's creating intellectual property, and then you're going to derive your sales from IP. So HMRC love that. They love R&D, giving R&D relief. They love innovation. So extra tax reliefs if you're in that area. And I think Thrillz does dip into that area. And then investors. If you have decided you want to invest some money, what tax reliefs can you get? And this would have been in your pack that you've, like, if you're looking for investors, you would be waving these reliefs in their face to be like, please give me some money. It's really low risk in terms of, because of the tax relief. And investors get tax relief because it's a way for the government to recognise that investing in a startup is risky. Majority of startups either struggle to get off the ground, or it might take a while to reach their growth potential. So to compensate investors for the risk and entice them to do it, they get certain tax reliefs. So the first one is income tax relief. Now under SEIS you get 50% relief, and under EIS you get 30%. But the main thing is, say you've invested £100,000 and it's in EIS, for example, you will get £30,000 of tax relief in your tax return. And that can go against any other tax that you're going to pay from other business revenues. So say you've got your salary, say you've got a couple of businesses you receive dividends from, say you've sold some NFTs, you get £30,000 worth of tax relief just by investing that 100,000. So it's a really, really good and generous relief, because there aren't many in tax.
Yeah.
I mean, they normally want to take it rather than give it to you.
It's amazing. It's really great for them.
And then the other one you need to be aware of is capital gains tax. So this is when you sell the shares. So the big thing for companies like Thrillz is to make sure that they maintain their advance assurance and their EIS status for 3 years. And then if an investor decides to sell their shares after that 3-year period, and the company has maintained that its status, then the shares are exempt from tax. But you can only claim that if you've already received income tax relief. So you can't, if you decided that maybe you've not got enough income in the year, maybe you're making some losses because of various other investments that you've got, if you haven't claimed your income tax relief and then you try to sell your shares, you won't get the exemption. So it's little things like that to be aware of as an investor and make sure that you don't miss out on anything. And then a couple of other ones, say you've sold some NFTs, or the big one now is crypto. Say you've made a massive gain in crypto because you were smart and you knew what to invest in. I still don't understand it, but say you were really good and you made a big gain in crypto, you can roll over that gain and defer it into your EIS shares or your SEIS shares. And you don't get out of paying the tax. It just means you get to kick the can down the road. And that's quite handy for cash flow as well, especially if you've got quite a big gain. And then one of the other last ones is, say for any reason, and obviously this will not happen for Thrillz, but say the shares are going to be sold at a loss. Say we have another worldwide pandemic or World War III happens, who knows at the moment. For any reason the shares are sold at a loss, then the investor can make an election for loss relief. And the easiest way is, I will put this up on the screen as well, but say you've invested £10,000, it's EIS, you get 30% tax relief, so you get £3,000 off your 10,000. So that means you've got £7,000 worth of investment, because you've already received £3,000 back through other sources. If the company is making a loss, then you can claim tax relief on that £7,000, which is your net investment. So say you're probably going to be a high rate taxpayer if you're investing money here, there and everywhere. Yeah. So your tax rate's going to be 45%. You get 45% times that 7,000, and you get that as an additional tax relief. And overall, what that means is, out of your £10,000 investment, you've actually only lost 3,850. So with EIS shares, that means that you have a 61.5% return. And with SEIS, you get a 72.5% return, which investing, that is a great return.
Yeah, especially if the company goes bust and it's a zero. So that's the way that we present it to investors. Is it's basically unlimited upside, because you don't pay tax on the gains, and then if the company goes to zero and there's no value in the company, you still get between 0.6 and 0.7 back as an investor.
It's amazing.
So it's really attractive.
Yeah, because usually if someone, like say in crypto, if you invest 10,000, you can end up with nothing. You can actually end up in a lot worse. Yeah. And NFTs, I mean, I haven't invested in any NFTs yet. Maybe one day. Yeah. I feel like I should have been an early adopter of all of this, but I'm far too skeptical. The auditor in me can't quite part with my money yet.
Yeah, it makes you pretty jealous when you see these guys that invested in Bitcoin when it was like 5p and now it's like 50,000. So some big risk takers.
Seen a lot more people investing over the pandemic. So quite a lot of people had maybe some cash that they didn't know what to do. They bought when the first lockdown happened in March, and now their investments are so high. Even in airlines, even though airlines went down, they're going to go back up. Electric battery manufacturers, electric cars are coming back with a bang.
Yeah, I mean, the market's going crazy, and I think it's one of the very few recessions that we've been in, and the crises that we've been in, where the majority of the population are actually going to leave it with more income than they had prior to entering it, because people were at home, especially like high net worths. They were all at home, not traveling, not going out, not dining. So there was always this build up of disposable income, and you're sitting at home. It's like, yeah, I'll put a couple grand in crypto, I'll put a couple grand in stocks, I'll put a couple grand in startups. So that's what's obviously driven like the insane prices in the markets right now.
I mean, it's great. Everyone has a bit more of a fund when you're not going out for a fancy dinner in London. I mean, I do miss going out for dinner quite a lot though.
Yeah. You know, it's good. It's good. Like now things are opening up, and there's some level.
Can't get a table anywhere.
Yeah. That's.
I never had this much trouble trying to book a table. I tried to book one for Saturday evening for 5 of us, and you can't get a table anywhere in London.
Yeah, it's getting really busy, and like even this morning when I was traveling in, Bank Station was super busy again, which is good, and there seems to be more life in the city, and I think there is definitely a return to normality on the cards.
We need it just as other things are being announced in the news, which are a little bit worrying. So hopefully that doesn't impact everything too much.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other point, investors, if you are getting on a little bit and you are thinking about future planning, EIS and SEIS shares are exempt from income tax, inheritance tax. So it's something else to think about. So you don't need to worry about transferring those shares over to your children quite yet, because they're not going to pay any tax on them anyway.
Yeah, no, it's a great scheme, and there's in the early days when we were going around with the begging bowl, asking friends and family to invest, it was basically the number one reason why they invested. A lot of them obviously knew me, and they thought I was a good custodian for their capital, but a lot of them were kind of senior professionals in investment banks and private equity firms that are making a couple $100,000 a year and paying $100,000 plus tax every year. So they were looking at ways to minimize that, and the way that investors look at it is like, okay, I can either give that tax to the tax man and it's zero, and then there's that's it, it's gone to the tax man, it's gone forever, or I can get some of it back and allocate it to a startup that could go to $1 billion, and I could be very, very wealthy from it with a lot of protection. So I think it's good to have like a balanced portfolio, and I said that to all of our investors, is like, don't put all your money in startups. It's really important that you diversify across like different asset classes.
You need your fingers in a lot of pies.
Yeah, exactly, and that's how most of our investors think about it, is they invest in startups as a percentage of their total investment amount, when they're allocating funds every year.
You only need one to take off for the return to be great.
Yeah.
And you also, so what celebrities do you have on your books?
Yeah, so we were really lucky to now have over 1,000.
Oh wow, a lot.
Yeah, this time last year we had less than 100, so we've 10x the book, which is really great, and testament to my colleagues that were the key force behind that. And now we've got some really big names. We've got the best book in the UK. We've got entertainers, we've got politicians, we've got sports stars. So some of the names include Katie Price, Kerry Katona, Nigel Farage, David Gower, Matt Letizia.
I reckon the sports stars are very popular.
Yeah, there's a lot of sports people, and we have some great cricketers, great footballers.
Yeah.
And like anything, everything grows over time, and it takes a bit of time. And as I said, last year we literally didn't have anyone. We didn't know anyone in the industry. I've never worked in the celebrity market myself. None of the team had as well, but we put our brains together, and we didn't give up, and we just persevered, and we've now infiltrated like a really highly guarded celebrity market. And we're now pretty pally with a lot of the agents, a lot of the influential people in the market.
Agents, don't you?
Exactly. And now we have a lot of direct access to probably over 90% of the celebrity book. And now we're moving into a really exciting phase of the company, and with the new funding rounds, we're going to be moving into Premiership footballers and Premiership football clubs.
Oh, guys are going to love that. A birthday message from their favourite footballer.
Absolutely. And birthday messages are really big, but and that's a funny thing because everyone actually thinks this business is only birthday video messages, but
I thought that when I first read it, but then when you take a step back, you're like, actually, no, there's so many other ways.
Yeah, and that's why the investors who spend time with me and understand the story and understand the vision get really excited about the business, because birthday messages is just one of about 100 different reasons why people are booking video messages. So we have the birthday messages, which is a big part of the business, but other reasons includes anniversaries, graduations, super fans just wanting a message for themselves.
Inside jokes.
Sometimes. Jokes, roasting, like people, like groups of guys, like you'll get videos of celebrities like making fun of their friends. And then Nigel Farage, who we recently signed exclusively to our business, one of his biggest markets is actually gamers.
Really?
In the UK, like young gamers booking like videos to basically make fun of their friends because they've like lost the game and they're like really competitive. So he's now become an icon in the gaming industry. And,
you would never put those two together.
It's hilarious, and he loves it. And his name within the gaming circle is actually called Big Chungus. So it's Nigel Farage, aka Big Chungus. Which has been doing really well. But then actually, like the real interesting part of the business is one of the fastest growing sides of the business is the B2B side. So we have a really fast growing book of businesses, particularly SMEs outside of London, that are booking celebrities for instant brand endorsements. And usually a brand endorsement will cost you £2,000, and it will take maybe 4 to 6 weeks to negotiate and get over the line. Whereas with us, they can do that. They can do that in a couple of clicks for an average price of about £250. So we have loads of reality stars, and we have all these amazing small businesses across the UK in facial aesthetics, tanning salons, dental practices. They're wanting to expand, wanting to grow, wanting to get some credibility to their brand, and getting a celebrity to endorse that brand very quickly and very affordably is a real prized asset for them. So that's like another big part of the business which we've barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, I can see why that would be massive, especially like for their social medias. And just even how do you, as a small business, how do you even contact a local celebrity or someone that you know the name of? Because if you send them an Instagram message, more than likely they may not see it, and not all of them have their agents listed. So it's a great way for everyone to get in contact with who they want. And maybe someone they're like, actually, they'd be quite good. I never even thought about them.
No, that's been like the real surprising part of the business that's grown like very fast. And we're now putting a lot of focus towards that. And a big part of the new funding round is going to be focused on scaling that vertical, because it's really beneficial for the businesses. And it's obviously fairly lucrative for the celebrities, and we enjoy adding value to both parties.
Do you have quite a lot of TikTok stars? Because I think TikTok's taken over from Facebook, or I think I read an article the other day that it's got the most traffic at the moment on its site.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the first time ever in Facebook's history, they've reported declining numbers. And
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and part of that reason was because most consumers are now spending a lot more time on TikTok than they are on Facebook. So yeah, TikTok's exploding, and Eloise is behind the camera right now. Is our resident TikTok star in-house. So she looks after our TikTok, but she also helps find and identify other new TikTok stars, and she works closely with our talent team to recruit the TikTok stars that have done really well. What's really interesting is we've been able to identify, recruit, and sign up and coming TikTok stars who've then become so famous in the next 6 months.
Because they blow up really quickly. It just takes a few videos. And they all of a sudden they've got like hundreds of thousands of followers. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, and they're very creative, and they create really, really cool content. Very loyal, unique, kind of niche followings. And really big numbers, lots of exposure, and these people are dying for the next video. So we've been able to get, I think, over 150 or 200 TikTok stars now, which is really good. So I think they enjoy it as well.
What sort of earnings can someone expect? So say you've got an up-and-coming TikTok star that happens to be listening, or someone who's a bit more established and maybe not thought about branching into this area. What can they sort of expect?
Yeah, no, it ranges completely between how famous and how willing the star is to put in the work. So we have some celebrities that are making six figures. They're willing to do videos every single day, for 30, 40 minutes, whatever it is. We have some celebrities that charge higher prices and are not willing to kind of do so many a day, but they're still making several thousand per week, which is really good. And then we have some individuals that price themselves really low, just want to give back to their fans. They're charging £1, £2, £3, and they're just doing loads. Yeah, and they're not in it for the money. They just want to connect with their fans. And I think over the Christmas period, we had one individual that put his price down to £1, and he just got completely flooded with bookings. But
it's good exposure for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Well. Yeah, they can see the long-term benefit.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, and someone like Nigel's done over 3,500 video messages, in his career. So
he loves being in front of the camera, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's great. He's he's a charismatic individual, and he's been doing really well on the platform.